Hello! In this episode, I'll be doing a brief overview of how RWBY is a counter-argument to the lone hero, but first, a channel update. I have loved all the support and engagement with these videos, and thank you for that, and just know that I do hope to continue them. However, with the new volume approaching and real-life stuff happening, I will not be doing these videos during Volume 8. Especially as I like to let episodes simmer, see other people's insights and the like before jumping into these. With that out of the way, RWBY is a counter-argument to the lone hero. RWBY's relationship to heroism, power and corruption is certainly a hot topic in the fandom at times, though forewarning, this won't address every character or arc so much as be a bite-sized piece of my meandering musings on the themes of RWBY, with a few characters serving as exemplars. I've referenced Hypertheon's amazing video series and Monty discussing his dislike for characters to be totally known to the audience on the first introduction and instead wanting to reveal and develop them in new layers and ways over time. I feel that keeping this in mind is integral to understanding many of the deeper aspects of RWBY, as well as how the evolving nature of fandom in the internet age with quickly popularized headcanons has at times led people to perhaps miss some of the nuances in RWBY's storytelling. With that in mind, let's finally start off with how the series challenges the common tropes of heroism. A common trend in media tends to involve either a chosen one or singular hero who, even in part of a team, stands above the rest and will likely be the last one standing in any final confrontation. RWBY rejects this notion on several levels, first and foremost by showing how damaging it is to foist these kinds of responsibilities on anyone, especially children, but also it challenges the idea of lone individual heroism in general. Overtly, this is thanks to the show's emphasis on teams, communication and working together, but it is also conveyed through the characters and arcs of those who think themselves as the sole heroes of the story. From the loners like Mara to the tragically self-sacrificing like Pyrrha, Nikos and Summer Rose, who were either isolated or challenged a foe well beyond their ability to fight alone with wholly good intentions but were ultimately laid low, becoming little more than tragic speed bumps. RWBY herself actually fell into this in earlier volumes. We repeatedly saw her lone wolf efforts usually ending in Pyrrhic victories at best, or only succeeding due to outside circumstances. Ozpin has done both so a lot of good and some pretty screwy stuff if one lingers on it, but the main focus here is on both his narrative role and his actions. Ozpin is framed at first like a mentor or big good figure, but either does not live up to this by design or only fills such roles temporarily or not necessarily perfectly, staying at the house at Haven being a sign of his passivity, for example. However, from a personal perspective, he views himself as the lone leading hero, but he was only alone because he basically made it impossible for anyone else to make informed decisions in fighting Salem by hiding information about her, thinking them unable to handle it. Under most circumstances, figures like this would, well, die. That's their narrative role after all. But Ozpin is a more varied character than just a mentor or fallen icon. He's defeated but comes back, and rather than being the all-wise wizard be good, he's instead shown to grapple and grasp onto his failing control of the situation, is uncovered as having led people into a war under false pretenses, is rejected and forced to reflect on his actions. In trying to be the sole leader and hero bearing the burden, he sabotaged himself, his relationships, allies, and the war itself. Now we move on to some very controversial figures who both deal in matters of power, self-delusion, and immorality. Both Adam and Ironwood have very similar character songs, Lionize and Hero respectively, just to start us off. Now, Hero is not as openly hostile to others as Lionize. Both of them frame everyone else as some variation of weak, helpless, foolish, childish, or otherwise unable to do what is necessary and thus is in need of the respective character. Adam showed his true colours more overtly than Ironwood, both with his actions in the Black trailer and in his service to Cinder at the end of Volume 2, but we see that Ironwood is also a morally compromised figure in the same volume, albeit more subtly. Both men are in essence military strongman type leaders with somewhat limited strategic capabilities. Adam was shown, despite his egotistical claims of being a hero, to have long since forsaken any nominally noble aspirations. His brand is but a means to guilt-trip Blake, his soldiers just tools to be thrown at an enemy while he amuses himself, the revolution little more than a quest for personal power. Comparatively, Ironwood definitely looks better on the surface, especially in volumes 2 and 3, but with his unsavory allies, betrayal of Ozpin, obsession with strength, trying to excuse his deceptions when people are being killed by Grimm, we see that there is groundwork being laid. He's not malicious, but he is morally compromised, and it becomes much clearer in volume 4. When, suspecting an attack on Haven, he withdraws all aid to Atlas, which he's functionally able to rule at his whim thanks to breaking the council seat system, while blaming everyone else for shared failures and using intimidation to enforce his will. It all starts coming home to roost by the time we arrive in Mantle, the city beneath Ironwood's home in Atlas, and find it to be dilapidated, its security never updated as Atlas's was, the working class are exploited, and Grimm are able to slip through gaping holes in the walls that we learn Ironwood is diverting supplies from. This is because, despite knowing he should care about Mantle on a moralistic level, it is just a few city blocks to Ironwood, at the very best. His ambitious plans, his army, his kingdom of Atlas all come before Mantle, and as we see in the Volume 7 finale, they come before the rest of the world as well. Ironwood both believes himself to be and wants to be the lone hero, the wise leader who saw what others could not and charted the path to victory. However, this manifests in him ignoring his emotions, his own culpability, and continually foisting sacrifice after sacrifice onto the people of Mantle for his plans to even stand a chance. And while briefly coaxed into trying to aid them by the heroes, he forsakes them the moment he feels Atlas is threatened, showing his heroism to be hollow. All believed themselves to be the lone heroes of the story, and everyone else but a secondary character. It bled into their worldviews and led them to tragic deaths, self-destruction, or outright villainy. All while the real heroes of the story learn to mend bridges, maintain bonds, support each other when one falls, and make dynamic, self-motivated decisions when they feel they have to, but not at others' expense. They don't fight alone, and because of that they never fall into the traps the lone heroes do, be it despair, isolation, or ego, and thus represent a macrocosm of what Salem fears most. Not a champion, not an army, but unity. Thanks for stopping by.